Hi, this is Jennifer Walls, and this is my third Gen Talk talking about the skeleton. So just in time, I was cleaning up my Halloween decorations, and we do have a skeleton that my daughter has appropriately named Carl. So Carl will be assisting us today. So when I talk, I do have my handouts, which I took pictures of him, so there's no one to give credit to except me. So if the pictures aren't very clear, then I will refer back to Carl because that's what he's here for. So the skeleton is actually made up of 206 classified bones. There are 2 recognized unclassified bones, and they are considered the sutural bones, and those bones are actually kind of chip-like that are embedded right where the cranial bones come together. And then there's the sesamoid bones, and those are actually shaped like a little sesame seed. I don't know if they're like the ones on a hamburger, but that's what they're called. They look like sesame seed. And those are embedded in the tendons. But also what I found out is the kneecap is not considered one. The skeleton is actually in 2 different kind of sections. You have your axil section that has 80 bones, and then your appendicular skeleton, and that has 126 bones. And the appendicular skeleton actually is divided up into your upper and lower skeleton. So here's a close-up of Carl. So this one, see if you can get a good picture. Okay. So in here we have the frontal bone, and that's going to be your forehead, and then your parietal. And that's going to be the 2 bones that actually kind of form the back of your head. Then you also have your temporal bones, and that's going to be on the side, kind of right where your temples are. And then you also have your cheekbones, which are considered your the zygomatic bones. And then your optical bone, and that's actually located at the base of your skull, and that's kind of considered kind of just that the base, kind of that it cradles it also. So we also have your upper jaw up here, and that's your maxilla, and then your mandible bone down here. I'm sure my mandible bone moves a lot because I talk a lot. And then your hyoid bone is kind of right back in here. Inside your orbital socket, you actually have your sphenoid that kind of goes right out here, and that's going to be your outer portion of your orbital socket. And then right center is the ethmoid, and that's going to be kind of just right in the center. And then over right into the center kind of the orbital socket is going to be your, oh my goodness, I just went blank, your latical bone. So then you have, so I always remember it because it's S-E-L and then L-E-S, and that's how I remember the bone structure in the orbital socket. So then that kind of talks about the crane, your skull, your cranial, and then of course your facial bones. Also kind of moving down, we have your scapula right here. And actually interesting because when I started learning to embalm, they told me to kind of use the scapula, the clavicle, the clavicle right here as kind of a cutting board. And what it does is when you put the scalpel on it and you kind of cut down, you're not worried about, cutting any like the major vessels. So I use the clavicle kind of as a guide, an anatomical guide for when I'm actually making that first incision when I'm raising vessels. Your scapula is on the back, so that's going to be your back shoulder. Carl, right there, scapula, clavicle. So I have not tried embalming on him, so, but it looks like he doesn't need it because he doesn't have a vascular system, so. And then kind of moving down, so we have your clavicle, your scapula. We also have your cervical vertebrae, and there's 7 of those, and those go from the base of the optical bone going down 7. And then you have your thoracic vertebrae. You have 12 of those, and they're actually, if you ever break something, they notify it as like it's T1 to T12. So if you ever break your bone, they'll tell you exactly which vertebrae you broke. I have not broken mine, but you know, a little food for thought. And then you have, so that goes all the way down, Carl. So that's going to be your thoracic. And then you have your lumbar, and your lumbar is L1 through L5. So your lumbar, your thoracic, and then your cervical up here. And then we're going to flip him around. So this is not the best example, but talking about the ribs. So you do have 7 true ribs, and those means that it's going to attach to the sternum, which is kind of right here. That's your whole sternum. So you have 7 ribs up here, and then you actually have 3 false ribs. And those are, they go all the way back, but they're sort of attached right up in here. And then you have your 2 floating ribs, and those are attached to the back, and they just kind of hang out. So they're not attached to anything, but they're considered your floating ribs. And then again, your sternum right here. So you have 7 cervical up here, and then you have 12 thoracic, and then you have 5 of the lumbar. You have 7 of the true ribs, and then you have 3 false ribs and 2 floating ribs. And then we're going to talk about your upper and lower extremities. So, of course, up here we have, you know what, it's so much easier to just actually, because I almost ripped his head off. Okay, so up here you have your humerus bone, and you have 2 of those. Now on this side, on the outside, so I always, on your thumb side, that is your radius, and then your ulna side is going to be on your pinky bone. So your radius is on your thumb side, and your ulna is on the pinky side. And then you have in this kind of wrist area, right there, you do have 16, and those are carpal bones, and that's where obviously where you get your carpal tunnel. And then you have your metacarpal, and that's going to be like the base of your hand. So Carl will show you the metacarpal, and then your fingers, whoop, right there, are going to be your phalanges. And there's your arm. Thank you, Carl. We're going to show your legs now. So we have your, so this is obviously your, well, I'm just going to move back. Your pectoral girdle is up here. Your pelvic girdle is also called the os coxa, and that's going to be right there. You have your femur, which is also one of the strongest bones, femur. And then you have your patella, and that's going to be kind of your knee right here. You have your tibia, which is the big bone, and that's like when you run your hand just down your shin. That's basically your shin is your tibia right here. And then your fibia is going to be that skinnier one way back over here. And then going down to your ankle, you have your tarsals instead. So your wrist has carpals, your ankle has tarsals, and then your metatarsals are going to be the top of your foot and the bottom of your foot, and your little toes are going to be your phalanges. So here you have two femurs, you have two humeruses, you have two radiuses, you have two ulnas, you have two femurs, you have two tibias, two fibias. When it comes to the carpal and the tarsals, your tarpal and then your tarsals, there are 16 carpals and there is 14 tarsals. On your metacarpal, you have 10. On your metatarsals, you have 10. And your fingers and toes, you have 28. That gives you, on the appendicular skeleton, 126. And there's your skeleton. A little fun fact for Jennifer, I only have 203 bones because I am missing a finger. So that means I am missing 3 of my phalanges. 1, 2, 3, but this is supposed to be right here. Boop, boop, right here. So Carl, you're missing your ring finger on your right hand. So Jennifer has 203, Carl has a 206. So Mr. Leonard, I hope you're feeling better. I just got over a cold not too long ago, so I know how it feels, and I love your class, and thank you, and until next time, bye-bye.